Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's Big Mike, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Coffee with Big Mike, the series where I sit down for a chat with some rather interesting and amazing people over a nice cup of coffee. Joining us today is not just one of my favorite streamers, but is in fact my comfort streamer, and a damn good friend, Abigail C.M. Welcome, Abby. How are you today?
I'm doing all right, Big Mike. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain this Sunday morning.
Well, that's right. It's Sunday for you.
Yep. So I'm talking to you from the future. Woo!
Yeah. What happens in the next 2 hours?
Well, I think in the next 2 hours is going to be this sexy alligator girl. She's going to talk to this guy. He's kind of a guy. He's kind of a duck, or he's kind of a goose. It's really unclear.
The day of the week.
Yeah. And also in the future, I see maybe in the next 6 to 7 hours, I see sleep. Sleep?
Yeah,
sleep? Yeah.
Definitely see that. I think you're accurate. I think you're dead on.
Also, maybe not you, but maybe some people you know, they smoke, right?
Oh yeah. We've been known to ingest a little bit of nicotine and tobacco.
Not only can I predict the future, but I'm also a mind reader as well.
What gave it away?
Oh no, just very, I learned that if you're ever going to be a mind reader or predict the future, be as broad as possible. Be as broad as possible. So, pretty.
It's called it's called, not cold reading. What the hell is it called? They call it it's like a technique that they use. Like, you remember back in the 90s, there was like those string of TV shows where like a guy would be like, "Oh, your grandma is communicating with me from beyond the grave to tell you that you have nice hair." Like, do you remember those shows?
Oh yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Crossing Over or something like.
Yeah, Crossing Over. I think that was the name of it for sure. They use a technique. I think it's called cold reading, where they just start by being vague, and then they just get slightly more specific. It's yeah.
That's I believe it's called cold reading. But man, it feels like forever ago since I saw something like that, and
yeah, it just occurred to me.
But now that you're here, and we've got all of our predictions out of the way. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Abigail Crocodilus Mississippi Pippianus, but you can call me Abby. Unless you're my ma, then you call me Abigail, and you call me Gail if you want to die. So, I'm a VTuber. Typically, I guess you would call me variety VTuber, but my viewers might say that I'm the Noida VTuber, which I'm not. I'm not a Noida VTuber. I play Noida once, maybe twice a week, and then I do other stuff. But let's see, I stream video games. Sometimes I'll do a collab. Sometimes I have a little talk show going on tomorrow. So yeah, I'm a variety streamer.
So I want to ask, is there a story behind the death threat that comes with somebody calling you Gail?
You know what? It's when I was real little, I just never. It's funny because even when I was born, my family they just called me Abby, or my mom would occasionally call me Abigail if I was in trouble, but nobody ever called me Gail. It just never occurred to me that was a part of my name. And I remember I was in kindergarten, my teacher referred to me as Gail, and I didn't like it. I don't know, it's like that weird thing when you're a kid, like just irks you in some way. And then, people would use it to kind of, not bully me, but, just kind of get at me. And it's just a joke. It doesn't really bother me anymore. But, I just like to rib people. I like to mess with people. So I like to give the implication that there's going to be some consequences if they do something completely inconsequential to me.
Well, it's interesting to see that, or to hear that, your mother using your full name is something, even in alligator culture, that signifies that you're in big trouble.
Oh yeah, no, that would be that crosses cultures right there. At least here in America. I don't know. You know what's funny? I've been meaning to ask some of our foreign buddies if they have that same what do you call it? What would you call it? It's not really a metaphor. It's not really a proverb. That same sort of.
I would say it's a cultural practice, maybe.
Yeah, cultural practice. That same sort of cultural practice where if your ma comes outside and she's like, Abigail C. Mississippianis, get your ass over here right now. Then you know you're in deep, deep, deep trouble.
Growing up, it was always like, I know I was in trouble if my mom called me by my first and second name, my first and middle name. So I would be, she was like, Michael, dot, 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 dot. And I was like, uh-oh, this ain't good.
Oh, no.
But
my mom would do this thing where she would make me think I was in trouble. And then she would ask me if I did something. And I would say no. But she kept doing this thing where she would ask me over and over again. And I would eventually just say yes to stuff that I never did. And it drove me crazy. I told her this years later. And she thought it was funny. I guess I'm glad we can laugh about it now. But my goodness, my mother would do that. She would call me over. She'd say, hey, did you do this? And I said, no, Ma, I didn't. And she would ask me again and again. And, yeah, she would just sort of force me to admit something I didn't do. And I get in trouble for it.
oh man.
Like one time I remember my cousin and I, so my ma, she worked at the elementary school that I went to. My mother was a lunch lady. And my aunt was also a lunch lady at that same school. So they worked together and I went to school with my cousin. I remember one time, I remember this like it was just yesterday. We were running to the cafeteria. I think it was after school or something. I really don't remember that much, but I just remember we're running towards the cafeteria. And my cousin and I are kind of just shoving to get into the door first because we're just racing. We're just, being kids. And my cousin swears, not anymore, but he swore at the time that I called him an asshole. And when you're 5, you call someone an asshole, you're like, oh, you're not supposed to say that word. Oh. So my mother, she took me in the office, and she did that. She's like, did you call your cousin an asshole? I'm like, no. She's like, did you call your cousin an asshole? I'm like, no. And eventually I said I did, and then I got in trouble over it. And that's just the one thing that plays in my head when I think about that.
My mom had to deal with a lot of absurdity. Like, I come from a very dysfunctional family. A very, very dysfunctional family. So sometimes, if my mom caught us doing something, or my mom, was going to confront us with something, depending on how we approach the situation, like if we could make her laugh, like it would be over. We could get away with whatever we wanted to get away with. And I remember distinctly two instances. So when I was in high school, my junior year, me and my cousin, we had wanted to watch some anime movies of a particular variety, and it was crazy because we went in there and we were able to we went into this movie rental place, which is, for kids who may be listening, back in the day before Netflix, it's a place where mommies and daddies used to go, and you would pay money and you could borrow a movie and bring it back in a couple of days. So we would go and we would get one of these special anime movies, special anime being hentai. At the time, when you're that young, you kind of have to sneak and do stuff like that. And this was before the internet was... This was about 2005, I would say. And so the internet was kind of hit and miss for people. A lot of people were starting to get it.
Not everybody was on the internet until about 2007. Right around, everyone kind of labels it right around when the iPhone first came out. That's when everybody got on the internet. But we're still in the old internet day, the golden age of internet at that point.
So we're up watching this. We're up in my room watching this, and my mom walks in, and my mom walks in at the worst possible scene. I mean, we're talking. We're talking almost full out. One of the most hardcore things. I'm not even going to bring up exactly what I was seeing, but the name of it was called Night Shift Nurses. But pretty hardcore. My mom looks at it and she says, Michael Blank, what are you watching? And my cousin says, PBS. And then my mom, she just starts, she can't keep a straight face, and she just walks out. And then once my brother got in trouble at school, like my brother, he was kind of, I have two younger brothers, one of them, he was kind of a rebel. I mean, I used to do crazy shit too, but I never got caught. But
you were a little slicker than that.
I try, I like to use my words to help me get out of stuff. But my brother got caught. I forget exactly what it was, and my mom went to go lift her hand up, like she was about to give him the right hand of fellowship, and then he took his hand and gave a five and said, "You go, girl." And then after that, my mom couldn't keep a straight face. She said, "Just don't do it again."
My mom would have kicked my ass.
Ooh. Ooh.
My mom had a paddle that she specifically made to rear us, and the day my father threw that in the fireplace, I have three sisters, all four of us were hooting and hollering. We were so happy. My mother would have kicked my ass if I do that. I remember one time. Oh, this is hilarious. My sister, I'm the youngest, by the way. My sister, she comes up to me and she says, "Abby, go up to Ma and ask her if it's that time of the month again." And I have no idea what the hell that means. I am 7, I think. So I have no idea what the hell she's talking about. So I'm like, all right. And so I go up to my mom and I was like, "Ma." And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Is it that time of the month again?" And she's like, "What did you just tell me?" And immediately, it's like my brain is just like, oh no. And I'm like, no. Sister told me to do it. And so my sister, that was one time I got out of that. My sister got in trouble for that. But I was the youngest. They would send me out to do all sorts. I was the caller ID. I was the person that was sent out to see if the coast was clear. I was the one that got told to open the door for the pizza person because nobody else wanted to interact socially. Yeah, that was my lot in life.
Yeah, I was the oldest in my family, and I have two younger brothers and a younger sister, and well, I have a slew of cousins who lived with us off and on throughout my life growing up, and so pretty much my parents are pretty much hands off for the most part. As long as you don't get in trouble with the law, and as long as you keep your grades up, do whatever you want to do. But so I was pretty hands off. But early on they were kind of strict. But I think having 4 children, you kind of realize you can't police, or it takes a lot of work to police, and plus people dealing with demons and shit, and ooh. But
yeah.
But yeah, it was an amazing time. It was a very magical time, very, very magical time.
Yeah, sometimes I look back on it and I'm a little like I think of some stuff and I'm like, oh, that makes me a little. Maybe that still bugs me a little bit, but no, it was the early 2000 that era was quite a magical time. It was before, like even before the internet and all that. It's strange, right? Because you and I, we were born before the internet really was a very mainstream concept, and we got to watch it happen in real time at probably real formative years in our lives, and it's the wildest thing to me because it's like black and white. Because I remember back to like late '80s, and it is just a different world completely.
It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. I was telling somebody yesterday. And this isn't exactly the same thing, but it's close enough. I remember growing up. I was born in the late '80s, and so I remember I grew up around VHS tapes. When I was 3 years old, I knew how to work a VCR, and VHS tapes were a really huge part of my life growing up. I used to love recording my favorite programs off of TV, and then late 90s, early 2000s, DVDs come and replace them. And then I would say maybe 2004, 2006, you have the HD, DVD, Blu-ray wars. And then pretty soon after that, I would say maybe 2000, somewhere between 2010, 2013, you have, I'm sorry, no, let me back up a little bit. Around 2006, 2007, you have, DVRs that kind of.
Oh yeah, geez, I forgot about DVRs. People had their TiVos and their DVRs. Yeah.
And then, around, I would say, 2010 to 2013, you get the rise of streaming services. Like, they take really big prominence. So it's kind of like, then this to kind of give you some retrospective for those for those listening, I should say. VHSs, were around since, I think, the 1970s, maybe? I might be mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was Betamax and before it was VHS, and then they just started calling it VHS. And then somewhere in there was Laserdisc, which was a different format. And then but VHS had prominence because there was no copyright in the format. Anybody could publish something in a VHS format because nobody owned the format. Nowadays, with Blu-ray, I believe Sony actually owns the rights to the format of Blu-ray. So if anybody releases a Blu-ray, they got to pay rights to Sony, which is why, if you look back at the VHS era, everything had a VHS. Workout tapes, your schlocky horror movies, like tons and tons of VHSs. But not so much for Blu-ray, and that's why.
It reminds me of what Nintendo did with the video game industry. Back, if I remember correctly, back in the days of the Atari, anybody could release a game. Anybody, and their grandmother could release a game. But then Nintendo came along and say, "Oh, we need to do some quality control here to make sure we don't have another video game market crash." And boom, and there you go. But I had no idea. I had no idea that the Blu-rays were like that. Actually,
yeah. I think I could be wrong about this, but I think James Rolfe, the video game nerd, he has a video that talks about it, the format wars. I think he mentions it there.
But I during the whole situation between HD, DVD, and Blu-ray, I was getting flashbacks to Betamax versus VHS, and honestly, I really held off on buying either one because I didn't know how it was going to go down, and I'm really glad I did because in a couple years, with the rise of streaming services and some other less celebrated ways of getting movies and such, it really wouldn't have been of use to me. But sorry,
I found this out the other day talking about streaming services. Netflix apparently had been around since like 1998. Like they've been around for several years before they really, several years, like a decade before they really rose to prominence. And I remember I used them in the mid 2000s because I was trying to watch some anime that I could not find elsewhere, and so they would send out DVDs to you. I don't think they do that anymore, but they used to send out DVDs to you, and you would watch them, and then you put it back in an envelope, and then they would send you the next one. Now the problem with this was you would get a DVD that was messed up, and I remember I was watching the finale of Gurren Lagann, and the disc was scratched, so like it's the final, it's the big climactic fight, and the DVD kept skipping, and it's as far as that's concerned, I think streaming's a little better, but I still like to own my physical media when I can.
I might be misremembering this. 'Cause I want to say Netflix had a vending machine like service, kind of like Redbox did. But I might be misremembering that.
I think you might be right. I know. Well, I mean, obviously Redbox existed. I know Blockbuster had a few right before they died out in some sort of vain attempt to kind of regain some market share. But even by the time Blockbuster had them, Redbox was also like on the downhill slope. Redbox is still around, but I don't think they're nearly as prominent as they used to be.
It kind of gets me. The story between Blockbuster and Netflix is kind of, I don't want to say it's poetic, but it's kind of, it's interesting because, what I've been told or what I've read is that Netflix actually went to Blockbuster in order, to pitch their idea, or the founders to pitch their idea, to try to sell it to Blockbuster. But the CEO at the time was very old school. He didn't believe in, the internet He thought the whole .com culture was just a passing fad, and lo and behold,
It was not.
it was not. And now it would seem that Netflix is on a similar trajectory now.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
No,
Yeah, they're with all their behavior recently. Yeah, yeah, you're kind of right. They're definitely they definitely aren't doing as well right now as they were 5 years ago. Hell, even a year ago.
now I kind of want to backtrack a bit.
Sure.
I kind of want to backtrack a bit. Now, earlier you talked about the different kind of streams that you did.
Yeah.
And if you had to choose, which type of stream is your favorite?
Gosh. My viewers are going to laugh at me for this, but at the moment, I really like my Noida streams. I'm not the Noida streamer, but I like my Noida streams. It's a game I know well. It's a game that the people who watch me, they like it too. There's a wide breadth of depth and stuff to do in Noida, and you don't have to. It's a game you can drop in at any time and watch what's happening, and you might not necessarily get all the pieces, but you understand what's happening. There's no, the point is to get from point A to point B, at its core. But I think my favorite, Noida Tuesdays are definitely my favorite. It's also up there because it's a consistent thing I do, and it's sort of something I can just lean back on. When I'm making the schedule every week, I'm like, Tuesday, Noida. There we go. All right, one day in the bank. While all the other days, like my Retro Fridays, are fun. Friday streams are always real fun because it's no matter what I do, I seem to get new people just browsing in on Fridays. And then Saturdays, it's usually an older game as well, but just Noida Tuesdays, they just I'm in the zone on Tuesday. So Noida Tuesdays, those are my favorite streams.
Now, besides Noida, what games do you like to play?
I'm sorry?
Other than Noida, what games do you like to play?
Other games?
Yeah, so not counting Noida, what other games are you interested in, or what other games do you enjoy playing?
Yeah, I certainly play other games. There's hold on, wait. Don't tell me. Hold on. I enjoy. You know what? I actually really do enjoy playing Among Us. That's a popular one, but I do enjoy playing Among Us with new people. If it's somebody I don't know, typically I really enjoy it because it's I don't know if you ever played Among Us, but it's essentially find the liar. That's the game, and it's when you play with the same people so many times, you get to see their patterns and their tricks and their psychological patterns and things like that. But when it's somebody new, you never know what to expect. You don't know if they're a really good liar or they're really bad or they're really bad at not lying. But it's crazy. So as long as I have new people to play with, I really enjoy Among Us. Roguelikes, going back to Noida, really roguelikes in general, I really tend to enjoy. I played Enter the Gungeon a couple years ago, and I sunk about 200 hours into that before I was done with it. I've got, let's see here. There's a roguelike sitting on my wish list right now, I think. What was it? Nuclear Throne. I've told that one's pretty good. And then Dungeon Souls. But roguelikes. I really like my roguelikes. It's because there's something different kind of always happening in a roguelike, and a good roguelike anyway. And it's like for Noida, for instance, because that's just the roguelike I'm playing right now. Let's see here. I'm sitting at about 135 hours, and I'm still finding things that I've never seen before in this game. So, yeah, roguelikes. I really like roguelikes. Oh, and Shantae. I really like Shantae.
This might be a dick question to ask, so please forgive me in advance. But if you had to choose a game to be your favorite, which game do you think is your favorite?
My favorite? Oh, gosh. You want to talk about favorite game of all time? That's a toughie. Well, I think I would... If I had to choose one, you had to put a gun to my head and you told me to choose one game that's been your favorite game. I haven't streamed it yet, but it's Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. It's a very, very good game. Visually, The music is great. The story is a culmination of the first two games, and it's probably the best art style out of the entire series. Shantae and the Pirates Girl.
I got to ask you this. I've never had a chance to play Shantae myself, but I remember when it first came out. It was one of the last games, if not the last game, for the Game Boy or Game Boy Color. And there was a special feature that I read that could only, that would be unlocked if you played it on a GBA. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. If you played it on the GBA, you could unlock the Tinkerbat transformation. And that was essentially I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily call it broken, but it was certainly the only one you needed, because I think it did about 3 or 4 of the functions of the other transformations. So you didn't really need to be anything else. You could just be a Tinkerbat.
That had perplexed me for so long. I never gotten around to play it. I've heard many, many good things about it. But
I highly recommend that if you do not have a way to... Well, actually, no. They re-released... That's right. I forgot about that. They re-released it digitally for the first time, I think several months ago. So you can buy the original Shantae on the Switch store. Is it on Steam? I think you can buy it.
I do know Shantae has a cult following though. She is really popular. Like I remember, I won't say she's the most popular request, but she's definitely up there when people talk about like the another character they want for Smash, for example.
I was definitely in the Shantae train. As far as like characters I seriously wanted and expected to be in Smash, Shantae was definitely up there for me. I know for Japanese polls, I want to say she was consistently up there, along with Sans Undertale.
Ooh. Now this might date yourself a little bit. And
oh no.
So what was the first video game you ever played, if you remember?
The first video game I ever played. It was a game on the NES. It was called The Legacy of Wizards. And the game made very little sense to me. Even now, when I go back to play it, it doesn't make a terrible amount of sense. Like the game interface is not super intuitive. There's like tons of items, but the game doesn't explain what any of it does. Very, very, very old school kind of title. And it seemed like I was missing something when I went back and played it when I was a little older. I was playing it. I'm like, I feel like there's some key information that I just am missing here. And it turns out it's a localization of a Japanese game, but it's not the first entry in that series. So Legacy of the Wizard was originally released in Japan as Dragon Slayer 4, the Dracell family. And they just localized it in the U.S. as Legacy of the Wizard and didn't include any of the plot from the Japanese title.
That will do it. That will definitely do it. I would say, I think the NES was notorious for doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, a lot of the platformers from that era kind of felt a bit off, and I suspect it was due to localization. Also, Nintendo had a lot of really strange and strict practices at the time. Like, for example, no depictions of religion, for example. Mm-hmm. I think also maybe a lot of Japanese culture was cut out. A lot of stuff.
I know they did that with a couple of titles for sure. No religious symbols. I don't think they really even wanted blood showing up in a lot of stuff. Nintendo was real strict. I want to say they also had, if you signed an agreement to make games for the NES, you could only make games for the NES, or you could only make a certain amount of games per year, I think is what they said. And for some of the younger people listening to this, you might say, that's insane. Why do people agree to do that? And that's because back in the 80s, Nintendo owned about 95% of the market of the video game industry. 95% of the market for the video game industry. So it was them. That was it. If you wanted to make video games, it was like you get on with the Nintendo, or you're going to be making bootlegs, or you're going to be making stuff for the ColecoVision or something. But yeah, that's why people dealt with it.
Yeah, there definitely was an exclusive agreement you had to sign to. However, if I remember correctly, they dropped it when the SNES came out. So that's why you see in the SNES era, you see Street Fighter on both Genesis and Super Nintendo, for example. But in the NES's day, yeah, definitely you couldn't make games for multiple systems.
And I think part of that is because the Sega came out and it started stealing market share. And Nintendo was like, crap, all right. And also licensing deals and things like that. You know, I'm sure. You know, when you go to Nintendo and you say, hey, I want to release Street Fighter for the SNES, but your contracts are weird. I'm sure they're like, we'll fix that right up. We want Street Fighter on our system, sure.
Now, I also have to ask, what's the most frustrating moment you have ever experienced as a gamer?
This happened recently, actually. I was playing No More Heroes 2 for the first time, and it's a fun game for the most part, but the final boss. So the final boss has 3 forms in No More Heroes 2. First one is pretty easy, but the second one is absolutely broken, and that's because he's just able to stun you. He's able to stun lock you, and he'll just kill you. Like, he can just kill you. If RNG decides that you aren't going to stand up, you aren't going to stand up. You're just going to sit there and get kicked around. And I thought maybe it was a skill issue. Maybe it's me. And so I went and looked up tutorials of this fight. No, even these people who do like no-hit runs and stuff are just getting knocked all over the place. So I was I rage quit. I did. I rage quit for about a day when I was beating No More Heroes 2. And I came back to it, and I did it eventually, but it was by sheer dumb luck that I did it. Yeah, that was... Oh, man, that made me real... That got me spicy. Oh.
And I would say for myself, probably the most frustrating moment. Have you ever heard of the Barrel of Doom?
The Barrel of Doom? No.
Okay, so there's this one section in Sonic 3. So there's this zone called Carnival Night Zone in Act 2. There's this one section where Sonic and Tails, or Sonic or Tails, are on a barrel. And you have to... It's never explained to you in the manual how to do this or how the mechanic works, but you use the D-pad up and down to make the barrel move up and down. But you're never told explicitly how to do this, and it's not as intuitive as it sounds, I would say. And so many people were stuck there for years and years. Because this was back before the internet was so popular. It was there was no game facts at the time, and really frustrating. Then I would say probably the next most frustrating thing for me would be, did you ever play Super Smash Bros. Melee?
Oh yeah, I still own a copy of Melee. Yeah.
So I was a huge Melee fan, really huge Melee fan, and I would say the challenge where you have to fight Giga Bowser, Gandalf, and Mewtwo. At first, really difficult, I would say. And then, you use the weakest player in the game to pretty much, KO them all. But then that wasn't so bad. I got to the point to where I could use my favorite to beat them. But at the time, that was really, it was really challenging.
That was a tough one. I remember doing that countless times. I was maining Dr. Mario back in Melee, and it was tough. I did it one time, and I'm like, that's it, no more.
Captain Falcon was my main back in Melee, and I would say I got to the point where I could do it pretty good with Captain Falcon, but at first, But then I like I read you got to use Jigglypuff for this. Jigglypuff?
I
really?
tried that. I tried that a few times. I tried to use Sleep, and I got a little headway with it, but I just went back to Dr. Mario and just dealt with it.
Dr. Mario was my second go-to character too, and I love Dr. Mario. So I don't know how he could do it legally, how a plumber could be a doctor, but in Super Smash Bros, he's legit, I will say. and probably more recently, I would say would be Slender the 8 Pages. Like I have yet to complete that game. Even today, I've never finished it. Partially, it's partially, scary experience, partially a frustrating experience. If I ever play and you hear me drop obscenities, it could be because of the jump scare. It could be because I'm pissed off. Well, maybe a combination of the two.
I'm way too scared to do jump scare stuff. I can't. I do not like. I don't like getting spooked like that. Like, I think the scariest game I could really play is, oh golly, something like a Resident Evil or Silent Hill. But I can't do anything that's jumping out and something going boom.
Yeah,
No.
I'm not particularly a big fan of it myself. I'm not really so big into horror myself. But I don't know, something about that. Something about it, I guess, because it's so well done. I would say it's not a big budget game. It was an indie title, done on a very small budget, but still, it was very impressive. And I can definitely say it's probably the first indie game I ever played. And as frustrating as it was, it did kind of have me coming back to it, I would say.
I do like the design of Slender Man. Something about really tall and sort of gangly. It's just it's very clean. It's not like the scariest design I've ever seen or anything, but I don't know, just a suit and everything. I don't know.
I definitely think it's the suit. He has the suit. I'm gonna take you, probably kill you, maybe devour your soul, but I look nice while I'm doing it. So
but nobody knows. Nobody knows. He just gets you.
Yeah. That's the craziest thing. Maybe it's just like a party everybody goes to.
Just a party.
Just a party. Yeah, I'm gonna scare you. Yeah, but on the other side, you're gonna be with a lot of other cool people and stuff. We're gonna have a good time. Maybe we got some beers on ice. We got the grill going. We're gonna all have a fun time.
He can't invite you because he doesn't have a mouth. He just has a big blank face.
And he has tentacles, so it's gonna be a fun time.
I don't know what it is with some people. Like Maxie's really into Five Nights at Freddy's, so he's all about that. His spooks and all that. I don't get it. I'm like, Maxie, how can you play that? And he just kind of sits at his little laptop and just goes. I'm like, all right.
I was a big fan of creepypasta. I still am, especially the old school ones. Especially when it comes to video games and lost episodes.
I read those ones. Yeah, like, I got the haunted cartridge at a yard sale, guys. Now Ben is drowning, and the Pokemon ghost is going to come out of my Game Boy and kill me.
Some of them were definitely better than other ones. Some of them are.
Ben Drown was definitely better than most of them.
I did like the Lavender Town Syndrome one. That one. Honestly, as a kid, it never really dawned on me. It never really hit me. But as an adult, after reading a lot of these creepypastas, I got to thinking just how out of place Lavender Town is in the world of Pokemon, or at least in Gen 1, just how out of place it was. Like, everything is so happy, everything is so bright and upbeat.
No, it definitely stands out. Even when I first played it, I remember it very vividly. And then, you go and you find your rival in the cemetery, and it's kind of implied that his Eradicate died because he doesn't have it after that. So it's this real sort of somber and dark moment in an otherwise relatively cheery game.
And I like how the villains are so hardcore there. Like, they're essentially, Team Rocket is essentially the mafia. I mean, the boss is named Giovanni. They kill a baby Pokemon in front of its own mother. They run extortion rings.
No, they're in the manga. They're like evil. It's not just like Team Rocket is this third-party terrorist organization. Like, Team Rocket has like a grip in the world. Because in the manga, a lot of the gym leaders are actually members of Team Rocket. So it's implied that Team Rocket has a much more firm foothold in politics and society as a whole in the manga. Hell, the manga has multiple Pokemon dying in it. I want to say in the early part of the manga, there's a there's an Arbok that just gets cut in half, I think. And then there's like a giant haunter that's just sucking souls out of people. And like Red gets frozen in the ice cave for like I forget whether it's a couple years or a couple months, but stuff like real stuff happens. It's not just like everything's solved in 30 minutes and it goes back to a status quo. Like actual stuff with weight happens. It's really good.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there was even like didn't one of the dead Pokemon come back as like a zombie or something at some point?
I don't remember. I just remember. I remember like there's a giant haunter that's kind of roaming the countryside, and it's just like sucking souls out of whatever it can touch. I don't remember a zombie Pokemon, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, speaking of Japanese media, are you into anime?
Yeah, I watch a lot of anime. I watch a lot of anime, and I read. Well, I don't read as much manga as I used to, but I do read manga.
And what anime is your favorite?
My favorite, gosh, that's a tough, like, absolute favorite. I see a lot of these. They were around at specific points in my life, and so it's this kind of combination of nostalgia and the fact that it's also just really good. I really like the original Furikuri. That one I keep coming back to. I really enjoy Gurren Lagann. That's not a perfect anime. It certainly has some problems, but I really, really do love that one. I think those two like immediately, at least until the Part 7 anime comes out. When it comes to manga, I've read most JoJo arcs. I've read. I haven't watched. So Part 7 it's not out yet. Because it's Part 6 is the anime adaptation that's out right now. Part 7, if you've never read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 7, Steel Ball Run, I highly recommend you do that because it is the single best shonen manga I've ever read in my life. It is brilliant. It is so good. It is just always enticing. It's always exciting. And even when you think it's done, it's not done. And it just keeps going. It's just, it's good.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Fooly Cooly myself. Really, really huge fan. I loved the whole approach to it. I love, the philosophy behind it. And the soundtrack. Fooly Cooly, I would say, is the one thing that got me into Japanese punk. And as a result, I listen to the Pillows on a regular basis now.
Yeah, they've been on my playlist for 20 some odd years now.
And I love the fact that they were inspired by Drawn Together. Are you familiar with Drawn Together?
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with it. I actually didn't. I'll admittedly say I didn't watch too much Drawn Together because it was a little too crass for me. I appreciate it. Like, it was funny. Don't get me wrong. Like, I look back on some clips and they're funny, but it was just a little too crass for me. I didn't enjoy it that much when I was younger.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites when it comes to adult animation, but it was an interesting experience. I think probably what I enjoyed the most about it was its parody of reality TV, which I absolutely loathe. I absolutely loathe reality TV. But also, I enjoyed a nice South Park reference in Fooly Cooly as well.
Yeah, there's at least two. There's at least two. Obviously, there's the one where it just cuts to the South Park style, but there's an episode where it's the one where they're putting on a school play, and at one point a car gets smashed, and the air freshener or like the little ornament on the rearview mirror, it's Kenny. It's him. It's Kenny. He's in his little orange jacket.
I haven't caught that one, but I'll have to go back and watch it. Actually, Fooly Cooly is one of the few anime that I can actually go back and rewatch. I'm not sure what it is about me. I'm kind of weird. Like, I can watch Family Guy, I can watch Simpsons, I can watch South Park, Aqua Teen Hunger Force hundreds of times, but when it comes to anime, like, there's only a handful of anime I could rewatch. Even anime I really enjoy, sometimes I find trouble rewatching it for some reason, and I don't really know why. But
you originally watched it at a different time, so you're a different person now. So
But then Fully Cooley is definitely one of those I rewatch on a regular basis.
It's aged very, very well.
What did you think about the newer iterations of it?
I just didn't bother. I rewatched Footy Cooley about half a year ago, and I asked my buddies. I was like, you know what? Should I watch alternative? Because I don't know. Because I was looking at the production list. I was seeing who worked on it, and I was like, nobody from the originals worked on this. I was looking at the soundtrack, and I was like, these are all just reworked songs from the Pillows. There's nothing new here, and I'm just like, something feels wrong here. I'm just not gonna. So I didn't bother watching them because I just, I had an instinct. I was like, no. I'll let other people have their opinion of it, and I'll just ignore it.
I'll say they definitely don't outdo the original, not by a long shot. But I will say the second one, the second new one, or I guess it would be the third one in the total grand scheme of things, was better than the second one was. The second one just kind of felt like, oh hey, we're Fully Cooley too, and pretty much didn't try anything too different. The third one was better than the second one. Still not as good as the first one, not as good as the original, but it was an interesting experience, I'd say. Speaking of anime, now I have to ask you, and I think I knew the answer to this, but my audience or our audience may or may not know this.
Sure.
Do you have a waifu?
Oh gosh, I was kind of cobbling together a bit of a list the other day. What did I do with it? Because I was sitting here and people ask me that. So unironically now even if we're talking about waifu in general, Shantae is my waifu. I literally have a photo of Shantae up on my wall right now. I love Shantae, I really do. But if we want to keep it to anime, let me see here. I got to roll through my head what I've been, who I've been. Because let's see here. That's all Western media. Because I was going to make a waifu chart. What the hell happened to my list? I don't know what I did with it. I have... So... waifu. That's a strong word. Because you don't want to have too many waifus. No one... like it's definitely like Shantae. Like, if I got to make, like, the image and in the middle, it's going to be Shantae. It's going to be Shantae. Other than that, like... Midna from Twilight Princess, but that's not anime. I wouldn't even call... I'm a big fan of Amelia Watson, but I wouldn't even call Amelia Watson my waifu. She's more my Oshi. Golly. I guess if it's taking me this long to think about it, then I guess no one, but I'm going to think about it as soon as we leave call. I'm just be like, oh, duh. But... off the top of my head, I can't immediately think of them. I'm like, they're just... There's a couple that I've had a very strong inclination for, and that, like, I care about them dearly, but I wouldn't necessarily call them, like, my waifu. Like, if we're talking about characters, I really care about Taiga from Toradora. I really, really, really love her. She's wonderful.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, and Akko from Little Witch Academia. I love her to bits. I just want to pat her head and go get her an ice cream. she's just so sweet. I like him Genki.
Actually, I had you pegged for Shantae. That's the one I was like, yeah, it's definitely Shantae.
Well, Shantae, she's perfect because, okay, so Shantae, she's genuinely kind. She's talented. She's capable and confident, and she's sexy, but she's not slutty. She knows she's sexy, but she also at the same time never really uses that to her advantage. It's almost like it's just so second nature to her that it just never occurs to her to, like, seduce someone. Like, even in Pirate's Curse, there's this whole section of the game where it's all just an excuse for fan service, and it's great. Shantae and every single female member of the cast is kidnapped, and they all wake up in slave Leia outfits. and there's wonderful graphics of these, and she just stands there, and she's not really like embarrassed or anything. She's just kind of like, "What's the deal with this outfit? What are we doing here?" But no, I definitely Shantae. She's the whole package, the whole deal. Just mwah.
Now, me and you, I think we have a common interest. We have a lot of common interests, but one really big one is lost media. You're interested in lost media, right?
Yeah, I love hearing about that sort of stuff. Things that just kind of fell through the cracks as time went on, and because now we live in a time where everything is documented. Somebody's out there documenting everything, but there's like these little things that just fall through the cracks. Like, it's funny. I was watching an episode of this the other day. It was so there was a Peter Pan series on, I think it was on Fox. It was called Peter Pan and the Pirates, I think it was just called. And it was a different interpretation. It had Tim Curry as Captain Hook. It's really good. It's quite a good series. But most of it's pseudo lost media. All the episodes you can find, but 98% of them are going to be in like 280p and just sound horrible. And then there was 3 episodes that got remastered for a DVD like 12 years ago. So yeah, just stuff like that is really interesting to me. And people just vying around hoping like somebody somewhere has a VHS they recorded that has a messy commercial or a lost Kids WB bumper or something on it.
I find it to be an interesting endeavor. I find it to be a very interesting endeavor, and I think the hunt is a really big part of it. It's really exciting. Also, it's really, in some regards, sometimes lost media can be as like a time capsule. But I'll get to that a bit more in a minute. But I want to ask, is there a certain piece of lost media that really interests you the most?
So there was this contest on Nick. Let me see if I can bring it up just a second. Yeah. Is this one it? There was a contest on Nickelodeon, and it was called, I think it was called Win a Day at SpongeBob's House, or Win something at SpongeBob's House. It was a SpongeBob contest, and some rather how do I say this? Some rather dedicated individuals were digging into it, because I think the winner got to appear in a SpongeBob thing, and some people were following it, and the contest period ended, and then nothing happened, and people were like, "That's weird. Where is this? What is this? Like, this is so strange and out of status quo, and just nothing's happening. What is the?" And so people were digging into it, trying to figure out if this piece of media even existed. And I think nowadays everybody kind of agrees it was some weird money laundering scheme, because I don't think that like the piece of media ever existed. But there's like this whole rabbit hole you can go down trying to figure out what was going on with this contest.
I think I know what you're talking about. It was supposed to be like a movie, right? It was supposed to be like a movie,
Yeah.
A Day with SpongeBob, but it was an unofficial
Day
movie.
with SpongeBob, I think. Yeah.
It was an unofficial movie, and yeah, I think they ended up concluded like it was going to be a real thing, but
yes, that's what it was. A Day with SpongeBob the movie. That's right.
But there were legal issues, and it kept getting passed around. And I think they finally tracked down a company responsible for it, and they had like an office. If I remember correctly, the office they found for it was in like the back of a mall cafeteria, which doesn't bode well at all. It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
Nothing. No, that's bad.
But they were pretty legit, if I recall correctly, because I've seen a couple videos. Because probably the most popular thing in the lost media community, I've heard people like Blame It on Jorge and LQ Supersonic talk about it. If I'm not mistaken, But yeah, it was just such a huge and crazy story just to follow. But I remember seeing a lot of similar stuff like that. Not particularly that one, but a lot of similar things, a lot of knockoff stuff. During the era, knockoff magazines, knockoff of videos, like an unofficial guide to like the Backstreet Boys or Aces, or just different stuff in the era.
Okay, I've had my wires crossed. I'm looking at this here. So this wasn't exactly, this was not an official Nickelodeon thing. Apparently, this was a mockumentary of some kind. A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, non-existent, unauthorized, direct-to-DVD mockumentary, 2011. And so that's why, yes, it was some sort of weird thing like that. I just want to clarify that was not a legit Nickelodeon thing.
I'd love, I would love to get the true story behind that whole situation, because I do have my suspicions that it probably was a money laundering scheme of some sort as well. But that's kind of really the interesting thing about it, is that we don't really have anything to go on but based on just the person who made it, their story and stuff, or the people behind it. Now, if you had to ask me that same question, I would say the original Sonic the Hedgehog prototype. So this is an interesting situation, because there are conflicting stories even from the creator. Some people say it was playable. Some people say it wasn't playable. There are parts of it that even the creator forgets exist, and all we have are screenshots of it.
We don't. Buck, I need you to back up about 5 sentences, because all the audio you were saying just completely cut out.
Oh.
That's why I left. I dropped call and bounced back in right now, because for some reason my connection just dropped.
So, and I would say, for me, if you would ask me that same question about what piece of lost media interests me the most, I would say it would be the original Sonic the Hedgehog prototype. And it's interesting because there are conflicting stories about it, even from the creator himself, about whether or not it was an actual playable demo or if it was just a video. The design is really different in many regards, and also I would say some of the gameplay looks like it could be really different as well. And this is kind of what I meant when I said earlier that this lost media kind of functions as a time capsule of sorts, because it can kind of give us an idea of what media was like, or what this type of media was like at the time. And particularly in regards to gaming and game development, it gives us a pretty good idea of the process. So the more of these prototypes we have, the better we can understand the development process of some of our most beloved games.
That gold and silver prototype, that leaked about a couple years ago, didn't it?
It did. Man.
Yeah. That was a big one.
Yeah, I'm still thinking of doing a playthrough on that. I came across the video, I want to say a couple of days ago, talked about how you can hack around the borders that are presented in the demo and can go past that, and you can see. And originally, if I remember correctly, if I recall correctly in the video, it said that originally, early on, the original layout of Johto, or the world, not Johto, but the world of Pokemon Gold and Silver, was to be based on the entirety of Japan, not just the Johto region. So I'm not sure if that's true. I haven't seen. Oh, absolutely. They scaled back a bit, in which they also still included Kanto in it, but a much more scaled down version of Kanto. But it's an interesting situation, and it's something I'm quite interested in, I would say. But I definitely believe the hunt is a really big part of it. It's almost like, I would say, the hunt for the Holy Grail, almost, in some regards.
I'd agree. And it's like, if they ever did get it, I'm sure they would be like, cool, and then move on to the next thing.
Oh, and they do. They absolutely do. The people who run the Lost Media Wiki, like they And many of the big YouTubers who deal with it, as far as I can tell, that's pretty much what they do. They go from one thing to another, or they juggle several at one time. And well, my hat's off to them. It's something I'm interested in. Don't know if I quite have the resources at the time to, put up much of an effort, but it's something I definitely do respect. Now, speaking of media and content creation, so I think this is the part we've all been waiting for here. The real meat and potatoes of this conversation.
Yeah.
So, I want to shift gears to VTubing now. And
Yeah.
why did you get into VTubing?
Well, I like entertaining people. I like having fun with people in sort of creative medium. And I talk about this in my streams every now and then, but I lived in California for a couple of years. And I was there and I studied a lot of theater. I studied some acting, and I was always a bit of a theater kid, but I lived in California for about, I would say about four years. And I tried to do acting and stuff like that. And I did. It's just after a while I realized that I didn't want to live in California. So, I moved home and I said, you know what? Why do I need to be in California to be an actor, to have fun with that sort of thing? And it was around that time that I started to notice VTubers kind of popping up. Well, actually, that's a lie. It was about a year or so later that I started noticing VTubers popping up. And at first I was like, "Oh, that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat." I'm not the traditional say so kind of idol type. That probably couldn't be me. And then I saw a VTuber by the name of Kira Coco, and everything changed. And I said, "You know what? I think I can do this. Let me get on that." And so that's why I said. I said, that's what I'll do. And so as for specifically why VTubing, right? It's, I don't much like the cult of personality that goes along with somebody picking up momentum and sort of gaining a following. And it's very natural for that to happen. Like, it just happens. Somebody gets...
Hello?
Oh, what part did I drop out there?
Oh, you were talking about the cult of personality, and then that's where we kind of lost you.
All right, so I'm not a big fan of the. I'll just start again. So, I'm not a big fan of the cult of personality that sort of naturally forms around somebody as they gain momentum and they become more popular, and that's fine. Being popular is perfectly fine. It's usually a sign you're doing something right. But I don't really like to be. I want people to like me for the things I do, not just because a bunch of other people say I'm good. I want each person to look at what I'm doing and say that's a talented, funny Gator. I sure love that Gator. And so that's kind of why I chose VTubing specifically, because there is a model between myself, this person behind the microphone, the Gator behind the mic, and the Gator on the screen, and all of the sort of popularity. That's a little presumptuous of me, but all the sort of popularity is sort of funneled to the Gator you see on your screen, and not necessarily to the Gator behind the mic. If you ever read about Daft Punk, and this is where this is where I'm coming from here. If you ever read Daft Punk's philosophy on why they had the aesthetic that they did, wearing their masks and things like that, it's because they didn't want people stopping them in the street, asking for their autograph, and they didn't want people idolizing them. And I kind of follow that same example, in a way. And so VTubing is this perfect intersect all the things I want to do, while also maintaining all the things I don't want to do. That's why I'm a VTuber.
I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment myself, actually. That's one of the reasons why I'm aiming to be a VTuber myself, because I want to entertain people, but I also I want to be able to live a normal life.
Exactly.
I brought it. Sorry.
Oh no, you go right on ahead.
Oh, I brought it up, many times before. I just want to be able to live my life, and one of the things that kind of really stuck with me is that I've never really been interested in celebrity gossip, celebrity news. But one of my younger brothers, he, for some reason, I can't quite figure out why he's really into that stuff. And he would watch stuff like Entertainment Tonight, or Access Hollywood. And I remember seeing some of these stuff. Oh, and TMZ. And I remember seeing some of this stuff one time because, I would often just hang out in the living room because I lived in a really, really hot house. So that was the coolest place. And he would be watching this stuff. And I remember one time there was somebody talking about, a certain actor or actress. And, they were seen buying a certain type of medication at a local pharmacy, and there was all this speculation on why. And I'm like, damn, why can't the person just live a normal life? Why do these people have to be hounding them so much? And at that point in time, I was like, because up until then, I wanted to be a filmmaker. Even after then, I wanted to be a filmmaker. But I was like, what kind of life is that? If you were to make it big, you essentially you don't have a life anymore. You're a prisoner. And one of the things that I saw attractive with VTubing was the fact that, hey, you know what, you can hide behind an avatar, for lack of a better phrase, and you could perform and stuff, and then you can still live your daily life, your normal life. And so I agree with that philosophy 100%.
That's what the devil was I going to say? That's also part of why I chose this sort of model. That's why I did that also, because I didn't want to necessarily be I'm not very big on, what do they call them? Parasocial relationships. I'm not very big on the boyfriend or girlfriend experience, and so I said, what is the opposite of either of those? And I said, yeah, Babby, we'll do that. That sounds great. So there's people who will write me off. They'll open my stream. I see it every time. They see the model and they're like, "Oh, look at that cute Gator girl," and they open the stream and they're there for 5 seconds and they disappear, and it's funny to me. But it certainly brings some challenges here and there. But I've slowly carved out a small, if very dedicated following of people. I don't even refer to the people who follow me as how these, like, a lot of the larger VTubers, they'll have like or even the smaller ones, they'll have a name for their group, their followers, or things like that, like Chumbud or Shrimps or Teammates or what have you. Yeah. I don't even have a name. It's just I refer to all of us collectively as the convoy, and that's supposed to be a term that includes me too, because I just, at every point that I could possibly cut down the implication that I am remotely even above somebody or better than somebody, I just want to just remove that entirely, because I don't want it'll happen. That sort of hierarchy is going to form no matter what you do if you get popular enough. But I just want to mitigate it as much as possible.
I like that approach, actually. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I chose to call, those people who are interested in me, like all two of them, as Big Mike spam. So we're all family. We're kind of like the Olive Garden, but you don't have to pay me to feed you. You're here, your family. But even if you're not here, you're still my family. But actually, I want to backtrack just a bit. You mentioned you spent time in Hollywood, and I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. Oh, I'm sorry. You said you spent time in California. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable.
It was L.A. It was Southern California.
And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. So if you don't feel like talking about it, we can move on. But do you have a story or two you could share, or you feel comfortable sharing from your time in L.A.?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you a couple. I studied stage combat. That was pretty fun. There were a couple of days where we were practicing falls, like how to fall down without hurting yourself, and we had the opportunity to fall off of a rather high place, and it was 25, 30 feet. Like that's high for me. I don't do heights very well, and that was really interesting. And pretty much what you want to do is when you get up that high and you fall, you want to fall on your back, and the pad or whatever they have, you essentially fall like a dog, like you would fall, like you would basically put your back to the floor and put your hands in front of you and your legs and bend your knees a little bit. And the idea is that you're landing on the sort of meatiest parts of your back on the pad that they have, and it's over in an instant, but you're just like, oh, it shakes you. L.A. is an interesting place. It's a fine place to visit. I don't know if it's necessarily the best place for someone like me to live, but I saw a lot of stuff. There was a lot of good stuff, but also some bad stuff. But I met a lot of really nice people. I still keep in contact with quite a few of them. It was a really nice time. I certainly don't look back on it with regret or anything like that. But it was when I realized, I'm like, I can't no more. I can't live here anymore. I actually want to save some money. Please get me out of here. It's everybody. Oh, here's a specific story for you. Everybody in the food service industry. I'm not 100% sure if it's like this everywhere in the U.S., but everybody in the food service industry in L.A. Everybody in the kitchen. They're all sleeping with each other. It's bizarre to me, but every kitchen I went to, there was all like a bunch of 20-something-year-olds, and they were all sleeping with each other. It was the most bizarre thing to me.
Pretty standard stuff, I'd say.
All right, that's... Yeah. Oh, boy.
I worked in 2 different restaurants, and my mother worked in, quite a few restaurants as well. Pretty standard stuff, but a lot of drama. In fact, I remember my first restaurant job, my mom said, go in there, stay to yourself, don't sleep with anybody, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, don't shit where you work, kids.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know if you heard me make some noise while you were talking about that fallen story, but I can't do heights. Fuck that. I cannot do heights. I was just visualizing that thing in my head.
It's rough. You think 20, you're like, 20, 30, that's not that high of a number. And then you get up there and you're like, oh, shit.
Like, it's really ironic because I'm like 6'3", and it's like I fucking hate heights. I can't do it. If I'm in an airplane, roller coaster, steps, elevator, okay, that's fine, no problem. But if I'm climbing a ladder,
exposed.
Yeah.
Ooh. No.
And probably the last question I want to ask you on this subject: did you meet anybody famous while you were in LA?
Yeah, there was 2 times. Well, I met quite a few people that I would deem rather popular, but I'll mention 2 people specifically because it doesn't really out me in any way, shape, or form to mention these 2 people. So I was in a coffee shop one time, and this dude goes to get his coffee off the counter, and he just drops it. And in the process, gets all the attention in the room. And I look, and it's Tim Allen. Like, Tim Allen's just in there looking embarrassed with his coffee. And I kind of helped him clean it up. And he was nice. I just said, hey. And whenever I meet somebody like that, I try not to make a big deal about it, because I don't want to be that person. I'll be like, oh my God, you're famous. You're so cool. And I just tell them, like, hey, I appreciate your stuff. Oh no, I've got the best story for you. Here's the best story. This is my favorite story. So I was working at a retail place in LA at the time, and it was a furniture store. And one day I'm just doing stuff in the aisles, and this tall guy with blonde hair walks up to me, and he says, "Hey, I want to get 3 or 4 of these racks, like rolling racks, these trolleys." And I look up, and it's Jason Mewes, like of Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Dude,
he's wearing his crunk man, his blunt man and chronic shirt, and I'm just like, oh, sure, you got it. And it took me a while. I had to go climb up into some racking and find these things, but we had them. And after I pulled him down and I helped him out to his car, and once again, I didn't say anything, but I think he knew that I knew who he was, because I kind of like brightened up a little bit when I saw him, and so packed the stuff up in his car, and I said, "Oh, thanks for coming on down. I really appreciate everything you do." And he's like, "Oh, thanks, buddy." And I went back inside, and he came back in a couple minutes later, and he says, "Oh, hey, you know what? I just wanted to say," he says this to me. He says, "I just wanted to say it was real good meeting you." And he goes and he shakes my hand, and I shake his hand. I'm like, "Hey, you know what? I love your work. I really appreciate you." He's like, "You have a good night." And I say, "You too." And he leaves, and I look down, and there's a $10 bill in my hand. He had palmed me a 10, and I didn't even notice.
Oh,
and I was like,
dude.
"Oh shit,
dude, man." If I would have met Jason Mewes or Kevin Smith, I would have fucking shit a brick, man. Let me tell you what.
It was funny. I was thinking about that for quite a while afterwards.
Man, yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, those two are pretty much the whole reason I got into filmmaking myself. So I'm like, damn, dude. I was like, but pretty badass, man. Pretty badass story, I have to say.
I think that's my favorite story. Pendleton. I worked at a kitchen, and Pendleton Ward would come in pretty often. It was around the Cartoon Network building. I'll say that much. And so I would get a lot of writers or storyboard artists, and some directors and stuff would come in. But Pendleton Ward, those of you who don't know, Pendleton Ward was the creator of Adventure Time. He would come in. He's a real sweet guy. A couple other people here and there, but I think that Jason Mewes one is my favorite story.
Now getting back into VTubing, if you had to choose, who would you say are some of your favorite VTubers?
Amelia Watson is my favorite VTuber. That girl has me in the palm of her hand. I'm here or there. She's very sweet. She's funny. She's spicy, which is what I really love. She's ganky, but she's also very creative. She just does these weird things sometimes. Like just the other day, I think it was like late last week, she has this stream where she made all these assets, and the long and short of it was sort of this role play of sorts where you, the chat, are going to the doctor's office, and she's giving you what's called the demorbing treatment because she's tired of people making Morbius memes. and no, Amelia Watson's definitely my favorite VTuber that's still hanging around at this moment. It's mostly a lot of HoloLive people. I'll say that much. Amelia is the one that I will go to just about every stream. A lot of other ones, and this is okay. It's okay to do this. I want people to know this. People feel a little bashful when they say this, but for a lot of other VTubers that I like, I typically will watch clips or I'll go watch specific streams, and that's okay. Perfectly fine to do that. But as far as I could talk about some indie tubers right here. I got a whole list of buddies in another server. My main man Cordy, he's a Scotsman. He's a pretty funny guy. He doodles a lot on Twitch, and he's good company. He drew 2 of my PNGs now, out of just the kindness of his heart. Merlin Bishop, he's fun. I've only collabed with him. He's funny. He deals with a lot of my stuff. When I collab with people, I really enjoy pushing their buttons. That's my favorite thing to do. I'm a bit of a little shit like that, or I just kind of see what irks them, or what I can get away with, or how far I can go before they tell me to shut up, or they bonk me, or something like that. Merlin Bishop, Cordy's real good. Let me look at my Twitter as well. There's a young lady by the name of Velvet. She's a vampire. I've watched a couple of her streams. She's enjoyable. She's very sweet. There are other people that there is this fella on my Twitter. I've never seen him stream, but he goes by the name of Tyranno. And this guy, I got to give it up to him, because he has this hustle on Twitter where he churns out this content that has such engagement and pulls people in so hard. And he's constantly doing it. Like he's photoshopping stuff on the fly and then reposting it back, and he's got this gumption that I sure don't. But to give you Go ahead, Big Mike. Go ahead, because I'm going to keep rambling.
Well, I want to say I just, I don't think there's anything wrong with, with not watching, everything a content creator puts out, even if they're, one of your favorites. We're all adults here. We're all juggling.
Lives.
We all have lives. We're juggling being content creators. We have work, we have families, etc. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. Hell, I'm stoked if somebody would, just to even tune in to watch one thing I put out, let alone, more than one. So, I think, I think that's a very reasonable way to look at it.
Yeah, and it's there's nothing shameful with just watching clips, and I tell people there's nothing shameful in lurking. People have come into my chat and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be lurking." I'm like, "That's fine, hang out, I don't care."
Now, would it be safe to assume that Amelia is the VTuber that has left the biggest impact on you?
I think so, definitely between her and Coco for sure, because Coco kind of shook my notions of what a idol or a VTuber has to be, and then Ame really, she stretches the sort of creative aspects of it, and I find that so enticing. It's so great, like her Buffson stream or her Doctor stream from a little while ago. Hell, she had a stream where right after she moved into a new office, and she made a bunch of, or had somebody make her a bunch of assets that she used just for that stream, and it was hilarious. It was great. So no, I look to her for a great deal of inspiration, and let's just say that being a Gator it's not entirely coincidental.
Well, that's actually a very timely answer, because actually my next question I wanted to ask you. The next thing I wanted to bring up is that, some VTubers, some people VTube as themselves. Like, whenever the day comes and I decide to step foot into the VTubing arena, I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to play a character. Of course, I'm going to have either going to be an avatar on the screen, but, I'm not going to, play a fictional character. Now, some people do, such as yourself. You play a character. So I want to ask, where did your idea for Abby come from?
Well, I had a few different ideas of what I wanted to be for a VTuber. And the first one was this sort of bald eagle, and then this other one was a sentient ball of cosmic gas. And then the other one was an alligator. And I was looking at them, and when you're thinking of an idea, or you have a concept, but you're trying to specify it more, and you're kind of you're thinking, like you're trying to pull something out of the void that speaks to you and go in a direction with it. That wasn't really happening with the eagle character. Like, I had a vague idea of what I wanted them to look like and what I wanted them to do, but it just, I was like, eh. For Abby, I saw it like that. It was in my mind's eye. For Abby and the sort of sentient ball of cosmic gas, I saw them both very clearly in my head. And so from there, I started to say, all right, well, who are they? What do they do? Why do they do the things they do? And honestly, for the most part, I ended up going with a Gator because, one, I thought it was a little more funny, excuse me, and two, from a technical aspect, Abby or myself, or you're making me get meta here. There was much more room for emoting with the Gator. I mean, I'll kind of show you what that sentient ball of gas looked like, because I did get art commissioned for him, and that's kind of what he looked like there. And you could see the problem is I wanted him to be an object head. So his head is sort of it's a big ball, it's a nebula. That's what his head is. I didn't want any sort of facial features. I didn't want a mouth or eyes or eyebrows or anything. And I was thinking, well, how does he emote? Obviously, there's my voice, but, there's much more to it than that. And for a while, I was like, oh, I could do colors, I could do this, and then it seemed a little out of my technical abilities. And so I said, all right, well, I want to start streaming. And so Abby was just as inspired. Abby was there, and Abby was not held back by certain limitations. And so I said, Mama Nix, give me Abby. And she said, here you go. And I said, great. And off I went.
Well, I definitely think you made the right choice with Abby. I still remember your first stream today. It was on YouTube, right? You streamed it on YouTube.
It was on YouTube. It ain't there anymore.
And so now, despite playing a character, is there any of yourself in Abby?
Oh, of course. That's what makes being Abby so natural. That's what makes it so fun. It's this sort of. I am a boomer. I am an old soul, and it's. I like to tell people I turned 50 when I turned 16, and it's a very easy thing for me to slip into. But Abby's at a point in her life where she's choosing to be happy, and she's choosing to have a better life. And I'm at a point in my life as well where things are just getting better. Everything, like when I was like 19, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna turn 30 and that's gonna be it. It's gonna be terrible. Well, I'm a little past 30 now, and I can tell you all for certain that things get increasingly better with time if you keep trying. And I'm kind of at that point where I'm reaping the benefits of all my toil. And so is Abby. And so it's I relate to her, she relates to me, and yeah, it's very Abby in a lot of ways is very personal.
I'll definitely say turning 30 isn't as scary as it seems, man. I remember my 30th birthday. I was like, oh fuck, I'm about to be 30. It's downhill from here, but no, actually, I would say, I would actually say, things actually got pretty good for me after I hit 30. For very similar reasons, I would say. Now, you are, I might be mispronouncing this, so please correct me if I am. Sure. But you are a Babiniku. Babiniku?
Babiniku, but I have a terrible Japanese accent, as you could tell. I say Babiniku, but I'm sure a Japanese person might say it a bit closer to what you're saying, but I could be completely wrong as well. But yes, Babiniku. So for those of you who don't know, that is a term that... Oh, go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that was going to be my question. I was going to ask you to explain what it was for our audience.
It's a term that means specifically born again, if I recall correctly. It is the term used for a VTuber that uses a male VTuber, or I think it's specifically a male VTuber that uses a female model. I think it might mean either male or female using the opposite sex model. Anyway, basically, if somebody says they're Babiniku, they're using a different an avatar that is the opposite sex of what they are in real life.
No,
I've just spoon-fed you. There you go.
Now, I know the difference between the two terms, but for those listening who may be unaware, does being Babiniku mean you're trans?
No, not at all. Actually, it's funny. When I was first starting, I said to myself, should I use a voice mod or something like? Because there are some Babiniku VTubers that do use a voice mod, and they sound very, very convincing. And I used a couple. Not on stream, but I used a couple in practice, and I was listening to it, and I said, you know what? This just sounds. It just feels like I'm trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes, and I didn't want to give that implication. And I also didn't want to give the implication that I was trans or trying to pass as anything other than Babiniku. And so that's actually part of why I don't use a filter at all. But no, I'm not. No, if you're Babiniku, it typically means you're not trans, typically. As far as I've seen, any trans VTuber will probably tell you that they're trans.
Another one of my favorite VTubers is a Babiniku, and they are very adamant in not using a voice changer.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Sinful Asher. I think you follow them as well. Very awesome person. And if you're a VTuber and you're listening to this and you're looking for a good role model, I would highly recommend you go follow. Sinful Asher. She's phenomenal, he's phenomenal, and just really someone awesome to look up to.
And he's funny.
Absolutely, absolutely, and also there are kitsune as well, which is
Oh, that's
always a
right.
plus. Always a plus.
Yeah, always pretty nice.
Now, why did you choose to be Babiniku?
I thought it was funny. That's the long and short of it. I thought it was hilarious. I was basically my thought process was this: have a high quality model, and then that'll pull people in. People will come in and say, "Wow, that voice shouldn't be coming out of that model," and then they'll be like, "What's happening here?" And then they'll stick around, and then from there, my wonderful entertaining abilities would retain people, and that's kind of worked, but not quite as much as I thought. There is this, at least in my usual haunts on the internet, there is this odd hesitation to enjoy a Babiniku VTuber that's slowly dissipating. And I think that's thanks to, in no small part, to Cordy and all the other lads in the Babby chat. But yeah, I thought it was funny because I was kind of thinking of a sort of a. I was kind of thinking of Monty Python in a way. I know that's weird. It's like it's way different at the end of the day, but I was kind of thinking of Monty Python because a lot of early Monty Python, it was funny because it was a bunch of middle-aged British men in drag. They would all be wearing dressed like old biddies and stuff, and I said, that's funny. I'm going to kind of emulate that, and that's sort of why. So long story short, because I thought it was funny.
I will say as a fan, it's something that it felt a little awkward at first. Well, partly for two reasons. The first, or the two big, Babiniku VTubers I came across, you and Sinfilla, I had no idea were Babiniku. And, but this was before, I interacted with you both on Twitter, way before I watched any of your streams.
Yeah.
And so, just coming, and I was like, oh, this is odd. This is odd because,
I don't know how I feel about this.
I mean, it's like, over time though, I've come to, I come to, separate the art from the artist.
Exactly.
I can, I can think Sinfilla the character, I can think Abby the character is hot. I can simp for them, and I can also be friends with the person behind that as well. But I'm not necessarily. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm into the person behind them.
Exactly, and that's another big reason why I went with being a babby, because if this goes back to my philosophy on garnering a following. It's like it's fine. Like if you want to sexualize and enjoy Abby like that, sure, go ahead. But I mean, it just provides more of a disconnect between me, the Gator behind the mic, and the Gator that you're seeing on the screen. Because I don't think anybody is gonna. I don't think anybody is going to necessarily fall in love with the fella behind the microphone before they fall for the funny Gator on the screen.
But I've been around people. I've been in the community, the VTuber community, for almost a year now. Well, August, September would be a year, I would say. And I've seen some pushback against the Babiniku. And so I want to ask, what are some of the challenges that you've had to face as a Babiniku that maybe other VTubers who aren't don't have to deal with?
So it's sort of like this weird niche because you're not a handsome guy, so you're not pulling in Fujos, but you're also not a cute girl, so you're not pulling in your average simp. And so at least with the type of the type of internet forums that I particularly post on, it's mostly people that'll come in and they'll just be like, "Babby, ugh." But it's been changing. It's weird. Like I don't want to necessarily say that's a challenge anymore. It's more of a. It's not a challenge in that like it's necessarily a bad thing. It's a challenge as in it's something to overcome, and it's been happening slowly. It's if people know that they're about to watch a babby, they will be a bit more open to it. as opposed to if they click on a link and then like they're kind of taken aback by it. That's sometimes something that they're not about. But I didn't necessarily want an audience that was simping. I wanted an audience that was there to kind of have fun with me. So it's at the same time all the negative or potentially negative aspects of being Babby are also kind of funneling me towards what I actually want. So, yeah, it's people who just kind of shut it out immediately because it's not what they expected, and I get that. Like, that's okay, fine. You know, you want a Pepsi and you go to take a drink and it's milk. You know, it's different. I get it. But that is something I deal with. I don't get people messaging me telling me to die or any crap like that. Thankfully, but it is something that I have to mitigate.
Actually, that was going to be my next question. You know, have you faced any harassment as a result of being Babiniku?
Nah, not at all. And I mean, I've been on the internet for very, very long time. It's hard to. So here's the number one rule: if people are trying to bully you, if people you don't know are trying to get a rise out of you on the internet, the worst possible thing you can do is get defensive about it. You do not. If you start to get defensive about it, those people are going to know they got you, and they're going to keep doing it. What you got to lean into it. You either do one of two things: you just ignore it entirely, or you lean into it. And a lot of the time, when you lean into it, when people see that you could take a joke, when people see that you can kind of roll with the punches, there's this sort of begrudging respect that forms, and you kind of end up turning people who didn't like you into people who do like you. Because you're not what they expected in any way, shape, or form. You're not the cute Gator girl they were expecting when they clicked on the Twitch link, and you're not the overly sensitive, emotional Twitter user that they were trying to get a rise out of. And so you kind of hit them from both sides. But no, I don't really get people. I know there's a couple more popular Babby VTubers that occasionally will get people like, why are you a guy? Why are you? I don't really get that. People come in and they just feel welcome. They just kind of hang out, and a lot of them lurk. And what's the last message I've gotten from somebody? The last message I got from a random person on Twitter was a very kind message of somebody saying, "Oh, I really appreciate your work."
No, a lot of people not just I would say not just people who are actually female or who are trans, but I have seen some other people in the Babiniku community get a different kind of harassment. Sometimes they'll receive unsolicited pics in their message inbox. And do you see that as something Abby's gonna have to deal with in the future, or do you think you're pretty much safe from that?
You know what? I think I will eventually. So I have a buddy who draws. He draws buxom women because he likes thick women, and who doesn't?
Oh, absolutely.
And so he does not imply that he is. He doesn't really talk about who he is or anything like that. He just draws the art and posts it. And the other day he messaged me and he's like, "Abby, I got my first unsolicited dick pic," and I was like, "Wow." So. I think eventually, maybe at some point, probably somebody will. They won't, because I took Babiniku off my Twitter bio because it was taking up space for other stuff. But somebody's probably going to look at my model, and I'm going to open my inbox one day and see something I don't want to see. But I am a very difficult person to actually offend. Like, if I saw that in my inbox one day, I'd probably laugh. Honestly, I would think it was hilarious. The first time I would probably take it as a badge of honor. I'd be like, it finally happened. I'm going places. I got people thirsting for me now.
So I have to ask, because I've never been in this situation, but it's something I've kind of thought about. If you receive an unsolicited one, is it kosher? Do you think it's kosher to send them one back in response?
You know what? If you're all right with your dong being on the internet, then sure. I'll you know what? I've never had it, but what I'd like to think I would do is I would rate it. I'd just be like, 5 out of 10. You can kind of clean up the hair a little bit there, but doing all right there, buddy.
Oh man.
It's not going to make it to the taste test. I'm just going to tell you that, pal.
No, for me, for somebody like me, it wouldn't really be too. It wouldn't really be too such a surprise. But for somebody that's playing a female character, to send one back in return, I can imagine that they could fuck with somebody's head, especially if they're not into that.
Yeah, especially. I mean, it's weird too because if they would send me a dick pic, and they don't even they think they think that the person behind the mic is a lady. They clearly did not take the 2 seconds to look at anything I have ever done. They literally just saw some of my tweets and were like, "Oh, I know what's gonna get her going." Or maybe they're just trying to mess with me. I don't know. I've gotten it was a long time ago before I started VTube, and I would get people messaging me, just trying to kind of get my goat. Maybe they're just trying to mess with me.
No, I've never received any unsolicited pics, since becoming a content creator. But in my day job, I have to talk to clients and stuff, and over video chat, and sometimes I have to deal with some free trial situations, and where people can try out the service, and oh boy, it's like chat roulette sometimes.
Oh, no.
I've gotten a couple male masturbators, one or two female masturbators. Even like my second or third year working there, I even got a couple in the throes of lovemaking.
Wow.
Just call me, and it's like, wow, this is. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
It's all occupational hazard, I suppose.
And because it's my job, I can't really say anything. Like I can't really say anything. I was like, I can't be a smart ass. I said, oh wow, look how small you are, or oh wow, because I got a family to feed. So okay, it's cool.
You kind of deal with it so you can put food on the table, and
yeah. But it's not all bad. It has its perks. I get to meet some really interesting people. I've talked to Japanese, people high up in the Japanese Ministry of Health, finance. I've talked to Korean senators, Saudi princes and stuff. So it's all good. Also, it's probably one of the reasons why I enjoy doing Coffee with Big Mike for so much, because I enjoy having conversations as well.
Yeah.
Something else I kind of want to touch on is that you're also a PNGtuber. Mm-hmm. And what has your experience been like as a PNGtuber?
It's a little harder to kind of pull people in like that. I've found that, and it's understandable. Across the board, I see people who have a proper working model. They tend to pull people in a little bit faster because it's something, you have something moving that's interacting with you. So it's a little different, and I get it. Proper working model is mighty expensive, and I don't want to half-ass it. I want it to look real good, so I'm very hesitant. I am working towards having a 2D or a 3D model, but with PNG, it's fun because I can have more sort of dynamic PNGs, and I have a couple. I have I've got one in a rabbit in a bunny costume. I've got one for Noida. I've got the one that's right here on your screen right now. I've got and I have an Among Us one. I have an Among Us one. So it's fun. It's like I'm wearing different costumes and stuff. But it's a little harder to retain people when you're just kind of a static image. People really like to see a model, whether it's a Vroid model or Live 2D or what have you. So I think that's been one of the challenges of a PNG will definitely make you work off of personality and content, because people aren't showing up necessarily for your model. I've been told I have a very, and this is not me tooting my horn, this is me tooting Mama Nix's horn. I've been told I have a very high quality PNG, which I'm very happy to hear that, because Mama Nix and I worked very hard on this design. And so, yeah, it's a little harder with PNG. Setup is easy. Setup is piss easy with PNG. But as far as audience growth and things like that, the growth is there. But I feel like if I had a proper model, it would be it would be a little bit faster, it'd be a little bigger. And when I say proper model, I don't mean to imply that that a PNG is not a proper model. I just mean like a rigged, moving model.
And I would just add, for those listening, not only is a fully rigged model quite expensive, there's a huge goddamn trust issue that goes into it as well. Because that's a lot of money, and you have no idea. You have no idea who's on the other side, and you can vet the person. You can vet the person, and you can try your best, but at the end, it's really all about trust. And for some people, that's a huge leap of faith for them to take, I would say. Now, I have to ask you, there are some people out there, even within the larger VTuber community, that look down on PNGtubers. And if you could tell such a person one thing, what's something that you would like them to know?
Gosh, I'd want to know why the hell they hate a PNGtuber so much. It just seems, it's weird to me, right? Like, it's just bizarre that there's sort of like a dislike. I don't know. I just don't. As I've gotten older, just real small things just stopped being an issue for me. Like, I remember when I was younger, if somebody was like, I use a Mac, I would kind of be like, but I don't know. It just doesn't matter. Like, it's such a weird thing to kind of get hooked up on. It's because here's the thing: if you want to be a VTuber, start streaming. Just start. That's the first step. Is you need to start streaming. Forget your debut and all this other. You have to start streaming. And if you want to stream through an avatar, the fastest way you can is to use a PNG. But as far as what I would say to somebody like that, I would probably ask them why they have such an issue with PNGtuber. Because I can't fathom why somebody would take issue with it. Honestly, it's a great place to start. It's very low commitment as far as like financially. So, not a lot of people have. Hell, even if you have $2,000 for a nice, really, really nice looking live 2D rig, not everybody's willing to just, roll the bones with $2,000. A PNG you can usually get for, if it's a higher quality one from a really good artist, you probably can get it for about $200, fully rendered and everything, and then you just have it. There it is. As opposed to a live 2D model, it takes a lot longer for them to rig it and costs 10 times more. So, it just confuses me. I don't know if I would even say anything to somebody like that, because I'd just be more confused. That's all.
Hands down, I'll be the first to fold. I can't wrap my mind around that either, to be honest with you. Like, I was like, it's there. That the hate is there. But
yeah, I've seen it here. Well, I've seen it mildly. I don't really see it on Twitter, because I don't really. Twitter, you can kind of make of it what you want, and so I don't really ever see that sort of stuff on Twitter.
But for me, it's just like, why? What's the point? Like, what's the point of this? These people aren't hurting you. They're not. They haven't wronged you. They're just trying to express themselves in the best way they can. Or the best way they feel comfortable doing so. So why this undeserved hate? And before, I'm surprised nobody has, jumped down my throat about this yet, because I'm pretty vocal about it. I'm pretty pro. I'm not a PNGtuber, but I'm pretty goddamn pro PNGtuber, I would say. But it's just odd to me. It's just, I don't know, people. I tell people this all the time. The longer I live, the less I feel like I understand my fellow man. But before we get into go down this rabbit hole, I want to ask, what were your first weeks like as a VTuber?
It was slow. It was real quiet. You have to be, and I think most people who are starting from zero, like I did, like I had no following. I'm not an artist or any kind. I don't have any sort of other popular alter ego that I bounced off of. It was slow. It was really, really. I was very lucky to see more than just myself in stream. It was tough, and I expected that, so it wasn't necessarily hard on me mentally, but it was. You kind of feel like you're running and going nowhere. So starting out is really rough. you've got to have some mental fortitude for that, because you can really sock yourself out if you just concentrate on a number and you're like, oh, it's not going up, it's not going up. So yeah, that's kind of how it was at the beginning for me.
And what do you think has been your best moment as a VTuber so far?
Honestly, my favorite. I really enjoy it when I get some. I don't even, when I get fan art, that really makes me happy. It shows that somebody enjoyed what I was doing enough to make something. But even just having people come in, just random people pass on by and say hi, and sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. But peak, God, what's my favorite moment so far? I've been really enjoying myself. I like when everything kind of comes together, and I'm in a good mood, and the chat's a little more active than usual, and everybody's vibing together. That's kind of my favorite moment. Yeah, like it's just a real good stream. Like there's that energy to it, and it feels real good. Yeah, all my collabs. I think this Among Us collab was pretty good. That one was pretty fun. That's going to definitely be up there. I had a collab before. We collabed Left 4 Dead, but my computer did not like streaming that, so that did not last very long.
Since becoming a VTuber, how has your life changed?
There's been a bit more structure to it. I've always lived on a schedule, because I'm a little neurotic like that. I have work 5 days a week, and then I have my workouts and everything set up, and then I just started adding VTubing into it. So I looked at my schedule, and yeah, it's become more structured, and a little bit not responsibility, but something to do. It's something to work at and kind of get better at, and maybe entice people and have a bigger following. But there's been more to do. Yeah. And
so many people invest hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, countless amount of time that that they're never going to get back, and an immeasurable amount of effort in becoming a VTuber. Mm-hmm. And for many people, or at least for some people, I should say, they never see anything in return, whether it's profit or whether it's fans. Now, with all of this in mind, do you think VTubing is worth it? And if so, what makes it worthwhile for Abby?
Well, you have to. This is with any artistic endeavor, and that's what it's entertainment. That's what VTubing is. You're being an entertainer. You could even put this over to streaming if you want to. You're being an entertainer, and that's an art form. So this goes with any art form. If you're starting, if your mindset is, I want to make a ton of money, it's not the best mindset. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make money off your art. But when you go in with that mindset, you have an expectation of you have an expectation that money's just kind of start flowing in and stuff like that, and it's not. It's not. You have to. It's part of the game, is that mental fortitude and that sort of repetitive gumption to keep hacking at it, even when it's slow. Like for me, like my progress is slower than most people, but it's there. Like it drips in. It drips in. Every stream I see 2 or 3 people follow. Twitter, a couple of people follow me every couple of days or so. A couple times a week I'll see a new sub, and it's there. You have to start. You have to understand that it's going to be a while. And this is why I tell people that the most important thing you can do if you want to be a streamer or a content creator is start.
I'm really, really, really sorry. Unfortunately, we lost you there for a moment.
Oh no! What was the last thing I said?
The last thing I heard you said was that you have to, you're going in with the wrong mindset.
Okay, so yeah, when you when you start out, it's going to be slow. This is true of any artistic endeavor. If you go in with the mindset of, oh, I'm gonna make this money, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make money off of your art form. That's fine. There's absolutely nothing shameful or wrong with that. But when you go in and that is the thing at the forefront of your mind, that's the goal, it's going to you're going to be disappointed, because it's not going to happen overnight. It does happen overnight, but it is like incredibly, incredibly, incredibly rare. For it to happen overnight, you've got to be the right person at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing to the right people. And that's a lot of things that got to go right. So you have to understand that it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long, long while, and you've got to see the progress you are making, and you've got to hold on to that, because that's going to carry you to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next day, etc., etc. Like, my progress is real slow. It's like a coffee dripper. It's, I see a couple people follow every stream. I get a couple of follows on Twitter every week. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get a sub or two every week. But it's progress. It's there. I didn't have that, 5 months ago. I didn't have that, a year ago. Well, I haven't been streaming here, but I didn't have that when I first started. But I hold on to that because that's proof. And this is why I tell people. It's going to take a long time. And this is why the most important thing that you can do if you want to be a streamer or a content creator is just start. You need to start.
I think that's some damn good advice. That is some damn good advice to give. Now, the next two questions I like to ask, you, and I like to ask you because, much like myself, you're, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but you're a small content creator. And so I want to ask these questions because, your perspective is going to be different from, say, somebody, in a, major, in a major group like vsojo or HoloLive. Your perspective is going to be much different from somebody who's much more established. And what do you think about the VTuber community?
I like it. It's fun to interact with people. It's kind of reminiscent of sort of. I'm going to kind of date myself again here. It kind of reminds me of sort of old roleplay chat rooms where everybody's kind of excited to see each other. There's not a lot of, at least from my perspective. I know this totally isn't true, but there's not a lot of infighting with the people that I know. There's not a lot of it's a nice community for the most part. And I haven't met a VTuber that I hate, so I mean, it's been fun so far, and it's been all the people I have met and people that I have collabed with, and they've been nothing but kind to me, and they've been nothing but funny, and they're really quite a joy to interact with and pal around with. So it's been all aces.
No, if you could change anything about the community, though, is there anything that you would like to change? And if so, why?
Yes, I would change that everybody prefers Babbies and everybody prefers Abigail, Crocodilus, Mississippi Pippianus, and everybody subscribe to Abigail so Abigail could commit to more content creation.
I can get behind that. I could get behind that. I was thinking maybe we could do some role play. I could be the crocodile hunter, and I don't know how Abby would take to that, but
Steve Irwin is a renovated. We really like Steve Irwin in this house.
Yeah, he's revered.
Revered. That's the word I'm looking for. Steve Irwin is a revered individual in the in the Mississippi Pippianus household.
Now, let's say, and you gave some pretty good advice before, but I just want to ask you this. Let's say there's someone out there watching this video, or rather I should say listening to this, and they want to be a VTuber. What advice could you offer such a person?
You have to start. Don't get too wound up with, everything needs to look perfect. Everything needs to look correct. Everything needs to look professional. I'm assuming this is... I'm just going to go with a hypothetical 19-year-old. Not a lot of money. Maybe they're still living at home. All that stuff. Don't expect things to suddenly pop off. Don't feel like everything needs to be perfect and professional, like you're right at HoloLive or Ninja Sanji or something like that. Start. You have to start. Whatever it is, you got to start. And you evolve from there. There's stuff that I did when I first started that I don't do now, or that I still do now. And you get better at it. I know a big thing for a lot of people is they say, I want a VTube, but I can't talk to myself, which is a thing you're gonna have to do if you're starting from zero like I did, and you're streaming to, 2 viewers, 1 or 2 people. You're gonna talk to yourself, and you got to get comfortable with that. You got to get good at it, or you got to find something that gets you yapping, because nothing is worse than going into a stream with a VTuber, and it's just dead air for 5-10 minutes at a time. That's just the worst. So learn to talk to yourself. Those are the 2 bare bones basic things.
Now, speaking of evolving, and this is really the last specific question I have for you,
Sure.
is what does the future look like for Abby?
Well, ideally, I can stream a little more, make more content, and I'm getting better at it too. I'm putting out a lot more clips. I'm messing around and learning Premiere, Photoshop, all that other fun stuff. But the future will include a moving model, and just more stuff. Whether not necessarily gaming streams. I'd like to follow Miss Watson's footsteps a little bit, and stretch out there. Like really, just go hog wild and really see what you can do with the medium. Like that Ninja Sanji girl that premiered not too long ago. Her debut. Her debut was included a full-on colonoscopy.
Oh.
A live streamed colonoscopy. It might have been her throat, actually. I don't quite remember, but just weird stuff you wouldn't think of. You'd just be like, why would somebody think to do that? So just weird stuff like that. Maybe not necessarily putting a camera up my ass, but
it's not out of the picture though, right?
I think that I'm not sure. I need to go watch the stream. I just know that that's what she did. There was a camera in her body and showing it off.
I mean, we're not ruling that out of the possible.
We're not ruling out the possibility. I mean, I'm not going to say no, but it seems it's a little much. But I'm not going to necessarily say no.
All right, so fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. Keep your fingers crossed, but don't hold your breath. And I would like to, in my daydreams, in my big VTuber daydreams, I'd like to have some merch at some point in the future. I like to have some Maxi merch. I like to make a couple Maxi Max dolls, things like that, or ball caps or merch.
I think the Abby and Max merch would pretty much sell itself. I mean, that's like, for me, this seems like money in the bank. What's not to love about, a sexy, alligator gal and her beloved. Would you consider Max a sidekick, or is more of a pet or partner?
Max is, I call Maxie my sidekick and pet. He's a good boy. He's sort of the stand-in. He kind of takes the place of whatever I need him to be on any story that I'm telling, just so I don't ever give too many specifics about myself.
No, do you have any questions for me, or is there anything you'd like to add?
Gosh, Mike, when you started, like, was YouTube was streaming the thing you wanted to do, or was like YouTube? You're like, I just want to make videos and throw them out there.
Mostly videos. Just videos, because I live on YouTube. YouTube is my life. I work several jobs. One of my jobs, it's not difficult work. Like, it's really easy, but it's just really time consuming because there's a lot of it I have to do. And so what I tend to do in that situation while I'm doing that particular job is that I'll open one tab on my job and the other tab with YouTube. And I'll play YouTube videos while I'm working in the other tab. And so I pretty much live on YouTube. And even since I say 2011, 2012, YouTube, has seen like a much more viable opportunity for me to share my vision, to be creative. As somebody coming from a filmmaking background, filmmaking isn't cheap, or at least back then it wasn't cheap.
No.
Now
it's easier now. Yeah.
And YouTube, with YouTube, I can do that. Now, I'm not ruling out the possibility of streaming, and I have streamed some in the past as well. But I need to improve my hardware first before I do that. I'm currently in the process of saving up money to build a PC, and my dream PC is going to be this really thick, sexy ass beast of a machine. And as somebody into IT and computer science as a hobby, I really just kind of get aroused sexually just thinking about it. But, but not until that happens. I probably won't try streaming again.
That's fair.
Because I had streamed earlier. I streamed a couple months ago, and I had a stream in which, I had just a Q&A stream where I was talking, and I was playing one game, everything went fine, and then in the next stream, I was playing my favorite game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and it was like the stream was like a couple seconds behind my actual gameplay. And I was like, I don't know about all this. So I kind of, okay, maybe it's not a good idea for me to stream now. And so I kind of backed out from that. But it is something I'm hoping to return to in the future once I get the appropriate hardware. But until then, and my main focus is just going to be making, traditional VOD content or video on demand content.
And I think what you're doing, that's a great example, because you don't need to have a super fancy setup to actually make content. You don't have to necessarily be a streamer to be a VTuber. You can just make the content, get it out there. Because the biggest thing about being a VTuber, here's the thing, is that live streaming it's good, and it's great because you have a consistent presence. But you need content around that's there when you aren't. And so what you're doing, I think, is far more beneficial than just streaming.
And, there are some other social issues around as well. I work several jobs. I have a wife and kid. Yeah. And so there are only certain times of the week I can actually sit down and record. And so I figure, it's much more worthwhile for me to devote that time to making, that VOD content. Or that VOD content. And because you bring up a really good point. I need something that's going to be there when I can't be there. Because I live in my time zone's not particularly too crazy per se. Like, I'm 11 to 12 hours ahead of EST time, depending on the time of the year. If it's daylight saving time or if it's not. So it's not too crazy. But the time when I can actually be active, it kind of syncs up nicely with the time a lot of people like to watch VTubers, that evening time. But there's also the morning crowd in the United States that I can't approach because that's nighttime here, and even though
it just doesn't work into your time schedule, it just doesn't work into your life.
I have a 5-year-old, and she's just like a ball of energy, and so I would never get anything. I would never, it wouldn't be a very enjoyable experience. Also, my wife is also a content creator as well. She's active on a very famous singing platform, and
nice.
So we kind of divide up time and stuff, and so we have to be respectful of each other's time. Because unfortunately, we can't really go at the same time because, if YouTube's copyright system was to pick up, there's this song in the background. Oh no, that's evil. That's evil.
Just gonna go ahead and clip that. Susan's just gonna make sure you're never heard it from again.
Yep, and well, But it's interesting. Somehow I was telling Black Chai Senpai this. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, but she was my previous guest last week. It's a mess, but somehow it all works itself out in the end. Which is it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
But Big Mike, I guess I can kind of wrap it up on this. I really appreciate you. I think you were one of the first people that really started following me. It's one of the first people that really started interacting with me. At least one of the first people that I vividly remember. And it's nice that we've kind of kept in touch and kept in contact. So that makes me real happy. So I'm glad we're finally able to do this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I remember just seeing your shirt, the shirt on your
RBF shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow, no way, no. I was like, no fucking way. There's somebody else here in the scene into ska punk, and so that's kind of what really got me in. But it's been a crazy couple months for me, actually. And I plan on going into more details in this in a video I'm hoping to be doing later this week on where I've been and how I was able to come back. But I had some
Yeah, 'cause I
technical
noticed
issues.
you were gone for a little bit, so I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I had some technical issues and stuff, and really interesting coincidence. Like, it actually was nothing done consciously on my end to fix the situation. So it's a crazy story, but I don't want to bore you with the technicalities and stuff. But I want to thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be here, Big Mike.
And if you would just stick around for the moment, I'm going to close this out, and then I'll come back to you. All right?
Very good.
So thank you so much, Abby, for joining us and for everything you've done to help me. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls, thank you so much for joining us as well. Be sure to check out Abby on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter at the links below. And if you would like to support her but can't donate to her, please be sure to give her a follow. Following VTubers is a great way to support them. Also, special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job doing my art. And special thanks to all of my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And most importantly, a special thank you to all of you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it, and feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. Until next time, fam, peace out!